Could you stop taking our deputies? Stop taking our deputies. We lost 2 in the last 2 days. You.
He did it on purpose, you know that.
I'm glad you sat right across from me.
Lean and mean, right? Right down, lean and mean.
2 in 2 days.
All right.
You work on that.
Yeah.
Nobody's picking on me about something.
All right, Dean, I call to order the counties of Warren and Washington Industrial Development Agency meeting on April 20th, 2026 at 4 p.m. I would remind the board to please speak as loud as you can so those that are online can hear us. We have plenty of microphones on. Roll call, please, Ally.
Amber,
Here.
John Kaplan,
Here.
Trisha Rogers. Here. Connor McCoy.
Here.
Melissa Fitch.
Here.
Juan Gonzalez.
Here.
We have a quorum. We have 6 out of 10.
Great. Moving on to item 2 of the agenda is approval of the March 16th and March 30th IDA board meeting and IDA/CDC special board minutes. I will entertain a motion to accept those minutes.
Charlie, can you hear us?
Very well.
Okay, good.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead and introduce those online.
Yeah, I'd like to say Charlie Tall is here and Mark Yersha via Zoom.
Great. Back to the minutes. I will entertain a motion to accept them, both those minutes. John, second. Dan, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Hearing none, motion carries. All right, moving into the treasurer, accounts payable, please.
All right. So reviewing the accounts payable, accounts payable on the paper is, was 126,170. Actual that was received this morning was 217,329. Of this, 166,312 is reimbursable. A couple of the larger reimbursable items are the January to March HUD reimbursements of 131,527. And portion of the closing costs for Wood Creek Holdings, which is 12,500. That total reimbursables for Wood Creek Holding now is at 20,662. All other items fell online. Should I mention the movement this morning of funds?
Yes.
So we did not currently have enough in the checking now account, but we do is to cover it through the ICS account. So we did initiate $100,000 transfer from the checking now account, which was at 153,821, to move 100,000 from the ICS to the checking now, bring our balance to 253,000 to efficiently cover the accounts payable. If there are no other questions on the accounts payable, I would entertain a motion to
So 2 things before we get to the motion. First, let me we do have Brian Campbell has joined us as a board member in person, so he will be voting. And I would just want to remind the board members, especially those that were not here in 2025, that back in May of 2025, we have approved the transfer between operating accounts, between the check operating account and the money market account upon approval of the chair and treasurer, and that was in our minutes of that as well. So this is your notification that that is happening. So with that, I would entertain a motion to accept the accounts payables. Dan, second. Trisha, any discussion? Get a roll call vote, please, Ally.
Brian Campbell,
Yes.
Ian Bruno,
Yes.
John Kaplan,
Yes.
Trisha Rogers.
Yes.
Connor McCoy,
Yes.
Melissa Fitch.
Yes.
Juan Gonzalez.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. Moving on to year-to-date financial report. Please, Treasurer.
Balance sheet year over year. We're definitely seeing some changes in it, but most are due to our $7 million total fixed asset adjustment. So when we're really looking at it, it's not as big as it actually does look on paper. Cash now balance is at 253,000 after we moved the 100,000 over, which puts us in a strong position post payable. ICS is still in a strong position, and I believe I had that still paying at 3.44% as of this morning. Now looking at the income statement, we're looking at really the Exit 19 lodging kind of coming in to be our first project payments of the year. That should be around $155,000 from what I'm seeing here on paper, which will put us back into a favorable position. Other larger items that came in over this past month were the $40,000 rail usage fee. which put our monthly net income at 19,344, which is the first, I believe, positive month we had this year. Again, noting that we are without Kiewit and we are without project fees coming in this year. That kind of covers it really. No other real big movement without any fees kind of closing. So any questions on the financials?
All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion to accept the year-to-date financial reports. Dan, second. Melissa, any discussion? Get a roll call vote, please, Ally?
Brian Campbell,
Yes.
Cam Bruno,
Yes.
John Powell,
Yes.
Richard Rogers.
Yes.
Connor McCoy,
Yes.
Melissa Fitch.
Yes.
Ron Gonzalez.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. Moving on to new business, 196 Ridge Street application. Turn this over to Chuck, which is on page 17 of your read ahead.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Let me start by introducing our guest, Dan Schneider, brother Adam Schneider, and their attorney, John Lambert. Thank you for being here. This is a $3.4 million housing project in the city of Glens Falls. This was referred to us by the city because you may know their idea not to 100% housing projects where we can. So Jeff Flagg referred the Schneiders to us, working fairly quickly. Let me turn it over to these gentlemen, let them describe the company, project, and I'll go into the incentives on. With that,
I'll get started.
okay, John, you want to go ahead?
Yep, so for the record, Dan and Adam Snyder have a successful and well-respected business, Snyder Drywall. This 196 Ridge Street project was always an abandoned project that it's a Victorian house that had a lot of good bones, but it was really bad shape. They were able to acquire it and we got approval for 12 units from the city. Certainly, there's a need for quality housing in Glens Falls. We had a letter of support from the principal of the elementary school, so just very positive. Got it all done, and secret resolution will set that. So it's a renovation that includes 3-bedroom and 2-bedroom units. Most of what's been built lately have been 1-bedroom units in the city. This is more geared towards family and certainly need for that, but they're ready to go. Arrow Bank is going to finance it and expect to have a commitment letter in about a month. And once we get through that and the ADA, we're ready to get going.
Okay, and can we talk a little bit about the rental rates that you're expecting?
Yeah. In the existing building, it's going to be 2 1-bedroom, 1-bedroom, $1,295, and 2-bedroom, $1,363, approximately. And the new building, 3-bedroom units, $2,100, and 2-bedroom units, $1,850. Yep.
Okay, great, thank you. Let me add some additional facts behind the project. So total project cost is estimated to be slightly over $3.4 million. The project is expected to generate over $3.1 million in construction activities. Construction labor will comprise approximately 30 positions valued at an estimated $1.4 million. Construction materials are also estimated at $1.71 million, with 95% sourced from within Warren and Washington counties and 100% sourced within the state. The project is expected to be financed by 3 sources: a $2 million mortgage with Arrow Bank, $0.2 million grant from the Lower Adirondack Rental Development Initiative, administered for the New York State Vacant Rental Program, and the $1.2 million in equity. The 2026 preliminary total assessment for the parcel right now is $229,900. 196 Ridge Street, Glens Falls LLC will continue to pay base property taxes on the assessed base value before construction. Current annual property taxes are approximately $12,680. As far as the project itself, to build 12 new housing projects will assist with the region's chronic housing shortage. In October 2023, Warren County released a housing needs study, market demand analysis, had some concerning observations for regional economic ecosystem. It cited there is widespread recognition that there is a county-wide housing shortage, specific gaps referenced by local stakeholders, including a lack of affordable housing for households with incomes up to 150% of the area median income and below. Further, there is fairly widespread recognition that the housing shortage has become sufficiently extreme to now be an economic development and community development issue as well as a housing issue. The existing housing stock at current prices is considered out of reach for the local workforce, young families, and year-round residents. Townhomes and other types of missing middle housing structures, year-round occupancy are not common in this market, though this type of design could fill a variety of the supply gaps. For example, high-density structures would be both more affordable and more appropriate to changing demographics. Study goes on to say, the housing shortage problem is magnified by recent higher costs. The cost of housing development has increased, material costs increased as a result of supply chain problems and inflation, and labor costs increased due to the increase in demand for specialized skills. The Warren County Planning Department followed with a housing implementation strategy, including establishing a Warren County Task Force, of which the Warren Washington IDA is a member organization. So moving on to the analysis for the incentives, there are 3 incentives being proposed. By the way, this application is just for acceptance, so you're getting a preview that we'll talk about at our next board meeting. The first is property tax incentives in the form of the pilot. The pilot payments will be for a term of 10 years with a 50% exemption of real property taxes on the value of improvements for year 1 and 5% annual increase for year 2 to 10 after construction is completed. This totals an estimated $573,098 of payments over 10 years versus an estimated $790,480 without the investment incentive. The estimated property tax benefit is $217,382 over 10 years. The second incentive is state and county sales tax abatement totaling 7% based on $1,711,000 in purchases subject to sales tax. The estimated benefit is $119,781. The third benefit is mortgage tax abatement of 1% from an estimated mortgage loan of $2 million. The estimated mortgage tax benefit is $20,000. The proposed total gross investment incentive is an estimated $357,162 before fees. The IDA administrative fee is $30,708 for services for servicing initiatives, including the tender pilot. The estimated legal fee is $15,000. The estimated total net incentives is $311,434. The net incentives are 9.1% of total project cost. Finally, the applicant explains that without the financial assistance, the project could not be completed as proposed. That the 6-unit townhouse component is particularly important because larger family-oriented housing units are difficult to find in the local market. The applicant states the IDA is necessary to complete the full project as intended. With that, open the floor for any questions.
No questions from the board. You mentioned Jeff Flagg. Can we get his title for the record?
He is the Director of Economic Development for the city of Glens Falls.
And did he discuss this project with anybody
He
else?
did discuss the project with the mayor. There's no concerns.
Great. With that, let me get through the resolution before you start throwing hands at me, and then we can open it up for discussion. I will entertain a motion approving the resolution, accepting an application for financial assistance submitted by 196 Ridge Street GF LLC relating to a residential project, authorizing a public hearing with respect to the project and describing the financial assistance being contemplated by the agency with respect to the project. Jones, second. Tricia. Discussion. With none, get a roll call vote, please, Ally.
Brian Campbell,
Yes.
Dan Bruno,
Yes.
John Caplan,
Yes.
Trisha Rogers,
Yes.
Tom McCoy,
Yes.
Melissa Fitch.
Yes.
Juan Gonzalez.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
First step, Chuck will get back in touch with you about the public hearing. Go ahead.
We'll have a public hearing and then we'll have this meeting month from now back. Yeah, actually, this time you gotta go Washington Town. It's a little bit road. Yeah, address it.
Perfect.
Thank you, congratulations.
You guys want the set of prints?
Sure.
We have them.
From Washington County.
Was able to have them printed out.
If you need them, I'll only pick one.
Yeah.
Well, one, this is the, full
Drive on.
drawing. This is a simple drawing, sort of a tall, so size. Okay, so you can have. You sure? Yep, we got it printed out just for today. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's what I thought.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you as well.
You can stick around if you want, but run while I can.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Color, nice to see you.
Thanks.
All right, moving on to the next item, the WWIDA Creative Economy Presentation and RFP Approval Consideration. We're over to Chuck for that one on page 52 of your read ahead.
Okay, so first I'd like to welcome our guests. We have John Leffner, the CEO of the High Collection. We have Sue Clary, Washington County Arts Expert and Supervisor for the town of Salem. How do you like that title? Is that good?
Good one.
Is that good? And then Jim Siblon, Warren County EDC President, and then Laura Oswald, the Director of Washington County Economic Development. Thank you for being here. Before I start the presentation, let me put this online so those online can see slides. Also. Okay, so. New territory for us. I will say that local cultural organization, economic development is leading together since late 2025 to discuss ideas for strengthening the local creative economy. So if we go to slide, let's talk about our current ecosystem. Our region has a solid foundation of arts, culture, and creative economy. Oh, by the way, I also want to make this conversational. So after each slide, if any of our guests have anything to add, please feel free to jump in and any dialogue throughout the presentation. So as far as our creative ecosystem, our foundation is various organizations. We did an AI search and came up with 85 venues, half in each county, and which are enclosed in the appendix of the presentation. I won't go through everyone. These diversified organizations stimulate economic activity with participation of residents, visitors, and tourists. However, the impact has not been quantified. And we now believe there's an opportunity to enhance the overall creative economy by learning about opportunities to come up with different strategies and action items to take the creative economy to the next level. I talked about these meetings we had for the past 4 or 5 months and with a group called Mosaic. So John, do you mind just sort of describing to everyone what Mosaic is?
Sure, I'll do my best. Mosaic is still sort of a living, breathing, growing series of organs, but some context behind it. I joined the Hyde 5 years ago as the Chief Development Officer with a plan to replace my predecessor as CEO a few years later. Thank you. You too. Prior to my time at the museum, I was a nonprofit executive for a bunch of organizations. Some you're familiar with: YMCA, Double H Ranch, Saratoga Independent School. In each of those stops, there had already been a built-in commonality of not only appreciating each other's work, one YMCA to another, but also having some behind-the-scenes tactical strategy in place. Some of you may know this, some of you may not. The Glens Falls YMCA, some of the back office functionality for years was operated by the Capital District Y. Members coming to the front door may not know that or even care. They're swiping their membership tag, they're coming in to enjoy a YMCA experience, but some of the finance, HR, marketing functions, they relied upon a resource next door and another Y. It's very common elsewhere. What I learned pretty quickly working in the museum space was it was not common in arts and culture. We have great collegial respect for each other, but there weren't a lot of conversations happening about the business side of our work and how we value ourselves and how we actually can identify our worth in the local and regional economy. So I reached out to Mark Bean, who I'm sure everyone in this room is very familiar with, for a few reasons around that time. One, to convince him to rejoin the board at the museum. 2, to take a long shot and convince him to come back as chair and replace Jason Ward, who was rolling off. And then third is to start talking about these ideas about collaboration. And, the things that we were talking about initially were some shared purchase power. These arts orgs in our region are robust in many ways, but aren't resourced in others. So for example, health insurance companies aren't beating down our doors to earn our business, right? I'm one of the larger arts employers in the region. And last year we had 8 people on the health insurance policy. Okay, so we didn't have a lot of negotiating leverage to fight for better service, better pricing, et cetera. And then other things that we have in common, snow removal, office supplies, things like that. So we started to just talk about what do these organizations have in common as opposed to what the public sees, right? What's public facing is going to be very different. What happens in the business office is very, very different. So we started to generate a list of ideas on how we could possibly work together. But I had some concerns early on. If the Hyde went first, we have our own challenges and limitations, but we're often seen as far more resourced than other arts and culture organizations. And I didn't want it to sound or smell like we were making a move to absorb another organization or to get into the books of another organization prematurely. It was really about creating win-wins for everyone. So Mark and I approached Jim in the EDC about serving as sort of a communication and strategy hub that had some neutrality. It didn't feel like one organization taking the lead. It was really the EDC serving as convener. And when we met with Jim, oh boy, this is maybe a year ago, I guess. I said something effective. I think we should start with 3 or 4 arts and culture organizations and kind of pilot this thing and build trust sort of slowly and just see how it feels. And because Jim has already built trust with so many of these leaders in our space, when we called the first meeting, I think there was maybe 15 organizations present. And at the next one, there was 20. And all of a sudden, it's garnering all this attention. We didn't even really know what we were doing yet. We're still kind of filling out the outline of what has now become referred to as Mosaic. What it has meant, and we're heading into the 7th meeting, which is now inclusive of probably 30 to 40 organizations in both Warren and Washington counties. In fact, the last meeting was at Fort Salem Theater. The next meeting is at Hubbard Hall. So we're spending more time together and talking about what Mosaic is becoming. But we now have probably 30 to 40 organizations that are interested in not just collaborating programmatically, like, oh, you have this exhibition up at the museum, maybe we can complement this with something on stage at the Wood Theater. Those program collaborations were already in existence. Now we're talking about how we matter as businesses and how we are far more than just the nice thing in the neighborhood. I hear that all the time. It's so nice that there's the Hyde in a city of 15,000 people. It's like, it is nice and it is vital to the economy that we're here. Would we have greater visitorship if we were in another more densely populated city? Sure. But we belong in 161 Warren Street. Just like these other assets belong where they are. It enriches the lives of our visitors, but certainly our residents. And when we started talking about our worth, how do we define our value in the economy? Mark and I had invited Chuck and Juan for a quick meeting right before a Mosaic meeting, maybe a few days before, to talk about some of this stuff. And then Chuck and Juan joined the Mosaic meeting and got to hear from many other voices in the room about how important it is to have such a saturation of arts and culture organizations in our community. You talk about 70 to 80 arts and culture orgs in the North Country, right? I try and find another model like that in the country where you have this many arts and culture offerings in a relatively lightly populated region like ours, but it has become such a magnet. And then when you talk about the real estate investment that's coming to our region, they look at us high on the list for a purpose. Are we going to build in your community? What is there to do? How do you entertain people? And what is the experience economy like? That's a term that's relatively new when you start talking about the segmentation of the economy. People a generation younger than me are spending their money on doing stuff, not buying stuff. They want to be a part of things. They want to feel community, this sense of having a third place, right? That isn't your home or your workplace. It's where you spend all of your valuable free time, and any disposable income that you have is going into experiences like the ones that we share. And I think all of that started to resonate, in the Mosaic environment. And we imparted some of that on Chuck to bring back to have conversation with the IDA about investing in an analysis of economic impact. We can't do this on our own. We are not professionally resourced to go out and tackle an objective like defining our own worth. Even if we all locked arms and in some ways slowed or stopped the things that we were doing to make time and space for this, we don't have the expertise. So aligning with a professional consulting firm that'll help steward this process and educate the community on what we're capable of will drive great change. Now, the Hyde specifically has a $5 million capital project that's underway right now to restore one of the historic homes in the property into a durable, versatile arts education center. So this is not stand behind the velvet rope and kind of peer in back into history. This is come in, roll your sleeves up and make a mess and have fun and learn. And it's going to stimulate visitorship, which is then going to have a very, very positive impact on our bed stays, our restaurants, our retail, and the general interest and awareness of what's happening here. So I share all that, hopefully to set some context of what is becoming Mosaic. Jim, however you want to mature that along.
Well, I had our annual, luncheon last fall, and I stood on the stage to talk about economic drivers in our region. And we were mostly talking about ones that were associated with the lake and some of the initiatives that we've already got started. But John was sitting in the front, and I turned to him from the stage and I said, and one of the objectives we have this year is to better define so that everyone can understand the economic value of the sector that you and your peers represent. So we made this commitment at that time. We didn't know exactly how that was going to manifest, but we've been gathering, as John says, as kind of a implicit, really informal organization, if you will, just a group of people who gather roughly monthly. The first few meetings were in our offices just so that people had a place to be, and now it's started to move around the community. But it's important to understand two things that underpin the things that both John and Chuck and I have already started uncovering. The first is that our regional economy for the last more than century has had not-for-profit work at the center of it. We tend to think of that as being driven by healthcare, and the largest employers in the not-for-profit world are indeed our hospital and entities like Hudson Headwaters. But for as long as there's been economic data in our area, 1 out of $3 that has flowed in our economy has come from either people who live here or from other places to engage in a not-for-profit sector. Now, we could say that that's just healthcare, but we would be underselling it and we would not be fully serving it. But it has been here. It is not going to be replaced by AI. It is not going to be automated. It continues to not just be a job creator, but an economic driver, and has been for literally generations. The problem was we couldn't literally put a dollar value on it that would help us frame what are the right investments, what are the right strategies, what are the right partners, what are the right grants. Should people do this on their own or should they do it together? That's where Chuck and I came in and said, well, the first thing we should do is figure out how other people have done it. Chuck can give you some more background on that. But the second thing was to say, well, we should make sure that we're aggregating our mass, not competing with each other. We've learned so much about how in places like the North, if we compete with each other, neither one of us gets anything. If Laura and I spend time both trying to compete for the same broadband grant, where neither of us are going to get it. But if the two of us put our arms together, we have a much better chance of getting that investment resource to our area. One last thing to mention. Again, something hard to define, but we're working to do it. Somewhere around 10% of the people who work in our economy are part of what we call the hidden economy. They sit in their third bedroom, or they sit in a coffee shop and they do whatever it is they do. They could do it anywhere. They've chosen to be here. It's one of our single greatest drivers of attraction of not just new people and new skills, but new families and new students. And as John says, one of the primary factors that they look at is quality of life. And one of the primary elements of quality of life is the cultural assets, except we couldn't articulate them well so that we could market them well, so that we can win at this game. But we don't have to look very far to see places that are both succeeding at it or not. And we definitely want to be one of those places that's succeeding in. So the first order of business, I think, is for us to figure out how do we objectively put dollar value on it? How do we show its value to the community? And what are some of the best practices that we can follow? That is the basis of the idea that generated us to what you're hearing today. We still have a lot of work to do, and there are things we can do outside of this study. We're still going to look at how we cross-promote, how we collaborate together, how we work on shared services. All of those things will continue while we try to do this. But it's long past due that we recognize this sector as not just one of the things we're most proud of in our community. It's literally one of the things that has always existed that has given us definition, shape, and value.
Okay, thank you, John. Thank you. Before we talk about Ulster County, Sue, Laura, do you have anything to add on this from the Washington County perspective?
The town of Salem is not very big, okay, but in that people will come for the Salem Harbor, they come for the historic Salem Courthouse, they come for the Georgie, and they also come for the Salem meeting. We personally have an Airbnb. I'm shocked at how many people stay in our Airbnb to go to these events. They eat at M&M, they eat at a restaurant that just opened up. I have more restaurants, but you know, it's another story. We collaborate with Cambridge. We have now a new bridge theater company that is actually using West Salem Theater. So instead of being open not just a weekend a month, they might be open 3 weekends a month. And so all of these things, working with the Hive and the Georgie, allowed us to keep the doors closed so that we could do disability and still have a base at the Hive with the Real Renaissance program with the Georgie. So there's these things that are happening now, but as far as the dollar amount goes, I like what Jim said, this quality of your life. And people come and are moving into Salem because they like what's going on. Okay, and that's what we need to concentrate on, because in our rural schools, we need enrollment going up. We need people to be able to have families there. We need to think about that, because there's value on enrollment. We all know that. We live in.
Okay.
Sorry.
A couple of things. First, a couple of quick stories that highlight what Jim said. I recently had conversations, one with a small business owner in Greenwich, who moved in from out of the area. And one of her points was, if you look at real estate in and around this area, although, you know, we shudder at $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 homes being average, that's half the cost that it is in many other communities. So to a lot of people who are looking to relocate, this area, this region is still seen as affordable. But you're not going to attract people to move here unless they have an outlet for work, which is either going to be an employer, or it's going to be gig economy, or it's, you know, self-employed. To that, you know, another similar one, I actually was speaking to a farmer from Utah whose land got sold out from under him, cannot afford land out there because it's an average of $42,000 an acre. So, you know, they're looking for land out in this area. So again, if you're going to attract people to move here, I don't see this region. It's certainly at least Warren and Washington. In the southern end of Saratoga, you've got large companies like Regeneron and like Global Foundries. I don't see large projects like that happening. So if our economies are going to grow, it's going to be based on smaller businesses. The other, you know, we can maybe talk about this later, Chuck, but so in looking at the list of entities that you've identified, and to John's point, a lot of these are very small nonprofits or small businesses that are all in, as we've talked about, arts and culture. One of the things that I sometimes have trouble with is this definition of what we call the creative economy. So look at something like Adirondack Scenic, one of our major employers. There is no more creative economy than what they do. I look at somebody like Fraunhofer Tools. They as the craft industry started brewing, they recognized a need to create the craft brewing equipment and started manufacturing it. You've also got R&D companies, the small R&D companies that go on to develop patents, et cetera. Those for-profit businesses are also what I would consider within the realm of creative economy, but their needs are going to be a little bit different than, for example, sharing and pooling resources from a number of nonprofits. But one way or another, all of those things together, or as many of those pieces as you can identify, are only going to help us to grow.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Thank you, Sue. Well, good news is we've realized we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We did extensive research for other areas that decided on this path, understanding their inventory, the economic impact, and opportunity analysis. And lo and behold, a county fairly close to us, Ulster County, down where Woodstock and Kingfisher and Falls and the Catskill Mountains, Bel-Air ski area are located. They enacted an RFP back in 2023 and hired actually two firms. They hired a firm called Lord Cultural Resources, and they brought in as a sub a firm called John Stover and Associates. And they worked together on identifying the cultural assets within Ulster County. They identified 545 cultural assets. And then when they did the economic impact analysis, they discovered that there were 3,564 jobs associated with those 545 cultural assets, and that they generated a total annual economic impact of $800 million, about 500 direct, 200 indirect, and 100 induced. And then they went on to identify, now go to the presentation chart, they went on to identify 4 different strategies, which are listed here. And I know I had sent out an executive summary with the presentation from Ulster County. Behind all 4 of these strategies are very meaningful, very specific action plans that are currently underway. They ended the study in 2025, and I've been talking with the project manager. Her name is Sarah Pasty, and they are now actively going after all these actions. And they're realizing they're not going to get this done in 2 months and not program. But now they have a foundation to build off of. So the creative economy in Ulster County will in fact be strong. So if I move on to the next slide, our recommendation is to hire a specialty experienced consulting firm to inventory our creative economy, quantify the impact, and identify growth strategies and actions. We would like to seek board approval to issue an RFP with a budget range of $100,000 to $200,000. And with this, we'd form an advisory group to be part of the selection process for the consulting firm and to then work with the consultant throughout the entire study. And then from that, what will this lead to? So we are looking to have a comprehensive inventory of regional creative assets, a credible estimate of the economic impact, identification of priority initiatives, and then have actionable implementation roadmap, and also be strongly positioned to seek grant study. With all of that, we had to talk about, let's talk about this as far as the IDA board doesn't fit with what we do. And we do have what we call mission aligned benefits. We will support economically sound growth by identifying creative economy assets, gaps, and investment opportunities. Advance job creation and retention by strengthening creative businesses, supporting sectors that help it grow. We'll promote general prosperity and economic welfare through stronger tourism activity, downtown vitality, related private sector spending. We'll facilitate private capital investment by producing credible data, prioritizing and implementation roadmap, support grants and future investment. And then finally strengthens the workforce attraction and retention by enhancing the quality of place factors that influence where people choose to live and work. So with that, those are our presentation charts. Any final comments from our guests before board members might have additional questions.
I do have a quick comment, Doc. I believe I told you when we spoke at a conference earlier this year that the capacity is there for an economic development study like this to have National Grid through their grant funding program match up to $100,000 in funding. So, I mean, I'm happy to help expedite those conversations, but so long as the study is economic development focused, they should be able to match most, if not all of it.
Great to pursue. We do want to make sure though that we can issue an RFP and get the project going. Meanwhile, if they can step in and help us with those, that would be fantastic.
One last thing, Chuck, I think there's a lot of learning in all this that I've had, and I think may be valuable to others. But I had the perception that arts groups broke into two categories. We had arts groups that were well-established, well-funded, well-resourced. John might be an example of one. That doesn't mean they don't have challenges. It just means that they represent maybe a sizable component of this. And then we had this collection of many smaller ones that were tended to be maybe one or even a part-time paid staff member and maybe an active board, and that was our two communities. What we discovered is really a continuum. I mean, I think we've got 85 identified here, but there's probably many more. We learn more about this every single day. I'm sure it's well over 100 when we do the full inventory. But it's less about how many people are working in the position of organizing or running that particular thing, and more about the community that is engaged with it. And we found similarity between Warren and Washington County in that the vast majority of organizations have a kind of an audience or a constituency that is significant. And it does not follow, like the symphony, for instance, is able to draw many people, but so is some of the assets that you mentioned, Sue. And yet you would look at one infrastructure as being way larger than another. You cannot sense like this is not two communities over here, a bunch of tiny ones and a few big ones. This is one big long line. And what we can't figure out is how big that line is. But I am sure that its impact is measured in many millions of dollars. And I am sure there is opportunity to work across it and make it bigger, which is our job. And I wanted to thank, before we're done with this, all the arts organizations for having faith in engaging with organizations like yours and like mine, like yours, Laura. Because that's not the way that these things have worked. Oftentimes, we've seen this as completely separate places. But we are building a relationship now where people believe that they are trusted members of both the community and the economy. And I think we have a great piece of fabric to work with here.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, Jim, another thing we talked about that organization with that group is for us not to lead this. Yes, we can bring some consultants in, but when we come up with the action items, we're going to be looking to this group to really lead these actions. We, the idea are not looking to be the lead. Talk to EDC, and I know Laura's talked about her group not being the lead. John would be more of the creative economy folks that would take the lead on this. That is one thing different. Ulster County did it more through the government. We're thinking less government or that will drive this. And also we'll leave it up to these consultants to help identify governance, I'll call it, of these action items once they're identified.
I agree. I mean, I think there's all the ambition and energy towards stewarding this forward in perpetuity, but an outcome from this study is going to help guide that. They're really going to help instruct and inform us as leaders. Here's a roadmap for success, so this doesn't fizzle. You know, no one wants to conduct a study of this magnitude and have it sit on a shelf. There are people in this community, myself included, that are absolutely ready, willing, able to lead that effort forward.
Any further discussion, questions for the presenters before we bring this to the board? Go, let's start with Dan.
Thank you. Three questions. One, is this, we have here on, I don't know, pages are numbered, but our recommendation, is that kind of the scope?
There, on the RFP.
Yeah.
Oh, recommendation. Yes, so the RFP package that went out is verbatim with those, the scope there. And the
We've already issued the,
No, we're looking for, I'm sorry, we're looking for, the Ulster County they did, but we're looking for approval today, so we can issue the RFP.
Right, to your question, Dan, we've begun to draft it with the group because we wanted to make sure that we provided context here with a model from somewhere else, but it won't be the same as somebody else's RFP. It will be our RFP. I would say it's probably 60–80% well-formed now, but it doesn't make sense for us to take it all away until we know that this is a priority of yours.
the second is, how did you arrive at this, this budget range, 100 to 200,000?
We looked at what others have spent for similar efforts.
Right. And what's the expected, time frame, duration, whatever, for this study?
It should be up to a year because of seasonality. That's one of the things that will be flushed out during the RFP process. Is we do have a lot of seasonality and culture items. And we don't want to bring your money in for 6 months and then we miss the first half of next year and then they don't see those events during that time frame. So that is still to be flushed out, but between 6 months to a year is going to be the time frame.
Thank you.
Brian.
I think it should be at least a year because you have winter and summer events and you're gonna miss spring and
Very
fall
unique.
one way or another.
I think that's something else.
I think it's gonna take the whole year.
There's an exposure of that in the interview process with applicants. You know, if they're really interested in this project, they have to understand how we work here geographically.
Yeah.
So if they come in with assumptions about it being fully loaded Memorial Day to Labor Day, they're missing a huge part of the sector here that needs to be investigated. So, you know, those things will expose themselves
Yep.
in the applicant interview process.
And the other thing I wanted to bring, I'm not gonna say her name right. Nushana, is that her name? And Svetlana in the North Country are both working on the online businesses that live throughout our rural areas that we know nothing about and doing workshops all over. I hope they would be part of your team. To me, it's a bit of a stretch for this to be under the IDA, but with Laura's idea that we could get half of it grant funded, I think it fits. And the main reason I think it fits, I think too many times government steps in and funds things, and the people that are passionate, as that money flows, they get old, fall by the wayside, and there's nobody coming behind them because the passionate people think, oh, government's always going to fund this. So I kind of like the idea that this is maybe a division of government, but it's still on the outside. I really like the idea that we're not trying to just go and get it funded through government, that we're actually looking for the people involved that are really passionate about this to making it grow and be self-fulfilling. And I think it will be, if it all comes to fruition.
This isn't totally measurable, but it's anecdotal. Our county and city government officials are talking more about the arts and culture activity than ever before. Because they understand the comprehensive value, or they can appreciate the comprehensive value that it brings to the community from an investment standpoint, from an overall quality of life standpoint. Those conversations were not happening 10 years ago. You know, they were hyper focused on the lake. And when I was hired 5 years ago, one of the things that I said and say almost every single day since is, we got to stop saying things like best kept secret and hidden gem. They are bad for business.
Yep.
It was charming to say that for a long time when the museum family was essentially underwriting the operations of the museum. And that is no longer the case. And that's just one organization. So there's been this sort of bashfulness for a long time here that said, hey, if you're not too busy in Lake George or Saratoga, please stop by Glens Falls or some of the locations we mentioned in Washington County. That's changing. And I think the organizations that we're talking about here are doing a little bit more of this. You know, they're starting to pound on their chest and be proud of who they are and saying, we are attractive on our own. And we are economically stimulating on our own in comparison to that, you know, the big brother sort of shadow that sometimes we feel we stand in. we're attracting a major audience at the Hyde. We served people from 42 states and 8 countries last year. For an art museum and a historic home in Glens Falls. Those numbers are rivaling much more household names. And again, that's just one organization. We didn't even know what we didn't know at the beginning of this. To see how much we are alike and how much we have to offer here is extraordinary. And, you know, these are conversations that happen. What Jim said before really stuck with me in terms of what we thought we knew. The reality is larger organizations like the Hyde work with smaller organizations like LARAC every single day. We're constantly interfacing with each other, supporting each other. Sue Clary called me 5 years ago and said, you know, we have an idea to renovate the Georgie. And I had to admit, red-faced, that I didn't know what the Georgie was. And then all of a sudden, that spun into a relationship that is enduring. We had a highlights of the Georgie exhibition recently. I helped with some grant materials that, you know, provided almost nothing directly to the Hyde, other than it supported the vitality of arts in our community as those projects march forward. We love doing that stuff. We all work together so closely. And you think about LARAC, for example, very busy epicenter of arts activity in Glens Falls, for a really small staff, right? If you look at Phil Casabona's business card, it's about this long to encapsulate all the titles. It's executive director, festival director, gallerist. Usually when I go in, he's working the front desk. But he's the first person I call when I need a supporting artist grant, because he knows how to navigate that system and I don't know how to do it. But that stuff is happening all the time, but it's behind the scenes and quiet. I think it's time to really amplify the noise.
So Brian, it's really important to understand, Chuck and I will only engage in this to the extent that we're helping to provide structure, definition to it. This has to be owned by the sector, just like we wouldn't expect to go into tourism, how to operate. We're trying to figure out how to better define those, what part of the economy does it sit in? What are the assets and what are the issues? And what are the things that we can help steer that would lead to it being even more productive? It does employ a lot of people, it does attract a lot of people, but I can't say exactly how much.
Right.
Which makes it not only hard for me, but it makes it hard for them to go out and go secure resources if it's a good investment. So what I really want is for them to have the information that allows them to say, this is what could happen if we were successful at our mission. And to me, that is not your and I's built. All we did was enable it by creating an objective source of its value. And I think if we're successful at this, they will be even more autonomous than they are today as a sector.
Well, that's what I don't want to kill their spirit. I think the passion's what makes those things work. And when you get government involved, it also makes it twice as expensive. But I think in a support role to move it along, I don't have a problem with that.
Something that falls in the category of good news when we talk about the public and private involvement here. I sit on the East End Rising Committee, which is the Brownfield Opportunity Area, Department of State funded initiative in the first ward. So Warren Street, all the way up to Dix Ave, Lehigh Cement to the traffic circle, essentially, that's the first ward, right? The conversations that are happening and how those on or under occupied structures in the first ward are going to be reimagined for the future are arts and culture first. The conversations are starting to tilt towards our region being a major hub of attraction for arts and culture activity. And everyone has a good idea about what to do with like the old post art building, right? Many of the conversations are anchored in arts. And all of a sudden you're going to connect these hubs. There's a lot of activity downtown. I don't want to make this too Glensville centric here, but it's a good example of there's all this activity downtown and then there's some stuff that happens down by the Hyde and the shirt factory. And how do we link those two together? Arts and culture will drive away. And that experience economy that we talked about, you know, the folks that are 45 and younger are going to be drawn to that. And then we do a good job of cross promoting everything else that happens. We talk about Sue Clary's Airbnb in Salem being booked all year long. They're coming for more than one thing, right? There's so many things happening between Cambridge and Salem, and then our partnerships there start to induce some of that activity this way. This is a two-way street for sure. And being a part of the skeleton for that is critically important. And everybody that's a part of Mosaic, I think would agree. This is a path worth pursuing, and And that there isn't an expectation that whether it's the EDC, the IDA, the county, or municipal government is gonna be the one to hold the responsibilities. We'll do it. That's how arts organizations work. You just figure it out, and we're on our way.
Well, I think the reality is that if government did it, financed it and made it, we'd also be the ones that would tear it down when things got tough.
Mhm.
So we actually wreck what we build eventually.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
So that's why you have to stand on your own. It's the only way it's gonna work.
We see the evidence of that in the public school system budget, right? First thing to go is arts
Absolutely.
and culture programming in
Yeah.
schools, and nonprofits step in and figure out how to help out, right?
Yep.
To create equity and some balance. It's not dissimilar, because as you said, sir, all the passion is there.
That's what makes these,
That's the fuel for something like this to actually work.
well, it's really the fuel for everything to work.
Any more questions for the presenters before we entertain a motion here to open up the discussion for the board members? All right, with no further questions for the presenters, I will entertain a motion to approve the request for a proposal for consulting services for arts, culture, and creative economy, economic impact, and opportunity analysis. Dan, second. Melissa. Discussion. All right, with no discussion, roll call vote, please, Alec.
Brian Campbell,
Yes.
Dan Bruno,
Yes.
John Caplan,
Yes.
Trisha Rogers. Yes. Ron McCoy,
Yes.
Liz Fitch.
Yes.
Ron Malone. Passes.
Motion passes.
Charlie.
Charlie,
I
jump-
tried to have I had a question on, this is a really intriguing proposal and it's, yeah, we're gonna have to rebrand ourselves if we go far with it as well, instead of being industrial, but where's the boundary? Because if we look north to Essex County and then go further north, they're having some similar development in certain ways as well. And our county borders Essex up there and then Ty and Crown Point. How do we just draw a line? Or are we?
Charlie, we've actually included them in the Mosaic group, and what we would try to do is, the same would be true, by the way, of Northern Saratoga, things that are in that corridor between Wilton and Moreau, for instance, that I think actually participate in this ecosystem more than they do south. But we need to call them out so that we can clarify this. If we're looking at the Warren, Washington County area, we need to be able to clearly identify it. But for instance, the Seagull Music Festival is, a part of this community. And I think that we would welcome anybody that thinks of themselves as part of this ecosystem, as long as we can clearly delineate where they are, and either include them in a macro analysis or bring them out in one that's unique to Warren and Washington County.
And I'll add, they need to roll up their sleeves and part of the team, get things done.
Brian,
Well, I would expect from the way you guys have described this, it will branch off on its own and become something bigger and more formidable, that then there is no boundaries. It's whatever groups want to really take part and do the work, would be my guess, whether they're in Essex County, Hamilton County, wherever they are, be my guess.
We've already been contacted by representatives in Rensselaer County to come down and present on Mosaic. It's a good feeling, but at first I said, we better make sure we have this a little more structured and tailored to what they're looking for, but the word is out. And I think the reach for Mosaic could be extraordinary. That's gone quickly. Thursday's meeting number 7, we'll probably have 40 or so organizations involved. We're really starting to stretch what we thought was going to be possible only a few months ago. So it's exciting.
Thank you.
Charlie, anything else? Didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, that was great. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
So I'd like to thank the presenters, I'd like to thank those that have put time and effort to get us to this point. We'll be back to the board once we have the proposals.
Yeah, we are looking to get the proposals before our next board meeting. However, not do the selection to the following board meeting, because we anticipate doing some interviewing. So if this moves forward, then our anticipated timing will award in 2 months. So next board meeting, you'll hear about the response to the RFP.
And yes, if we could change our name from the IDA to something more,
That would probably be illegal, so you.
Yes, that's right. So I truly appreciate the board willing to go out and be flexible here, because we have an opportunity. No greater challenged and to set up the next generation for opportunities, and this is what do.
But I think the consultation part of what the work they'll do will equal anywhere in the state or the region. It won't be just here. We're just gonna use ours to set it up for us,
Yes.
and then they can expand to wherever they need to go. I think that's the whole idea. The idea is for them to be on their own. Because they're gonna do a better job than we'd ever do with it.
Great. All right. Thank you, presenters. You can stick around if you want to hear about Canal Side.
Excuse ourselves.
Leave while you can.
Good work.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good job.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I was afraid you were gonna put Dan and I in charge. Two civil engineers and that's creative guy you got on there. There you go. All the creative folks. All right, thank you, everybody. Let's move on. Number 5, reports committee. Park chair, please.
Yes, sir. Regarding canal side. Hewitt is, their lease has been terminated, I believe. Site looks good, it's clean. I was there today. SMS Rail only has about 8 to 10 cars there for unloading, and that's it. So as I said before, I think that revenue stream will start to taper off somewhat, at least for the foreseeable future. The East Street entrance modifications, that's been awarded. I think you're all aware of that, but that work should start May 1st and be 100% complete by June 30th. So that'll be good, and that'll be well in advance of the Block 8-way bridge replacement by Washington County. I'm sure Mr. Bart has more things to expand with respect to canal side, expand on. And the airport industrial park. I think again, Mr. Bart, probably comment on that. I think we're still back. Yeah, load, if you will, or dispense with the remaining properties. So. No, other than that, I don't have an awful lot.
Great, thank you. Turn it over to Chuck for the rest of the updates.
Okay, I'll jump in. I'll try not to be redundant, Mr. Bruno. Let's start with the canal side water capacity expansion. The Village Water District responded favorably to our IDA's will serve letter, so we have now commitment from the Water District. Labella is preparing the invitation to bid package for the East Street water line replacement up to the railroad crossing for the IDA board to consider probably next board meeting. The RFP is being put together as I speak, and we hope to be wrapped within a couple of weeks, and then board meeting. Also, Labella is addressing the village project development agreement presented by the village attorney Matt Fuller. Labella and Kara are embedding the village requirements into the water project manual. Moving on to the new sewer connection, the Washington County Sewer District responded favorably to the IDA's will serve letter. The specific conditions are being evaluated. Number 2, the proposed new sewer connection from the industrial park to East Street runs across WCC land. WCC suggested selling the lot to the IDA and has an appraisal underway expected to be completed by the end of May. WCC said the sales agreement needs to include access rights to the remaining lot with the railroad tracks. We will begin drafting the agreement while we wait for the appraisal. There's more to come on that. Moving on to East Street entrance road modification project. The Canal Corp work permit application was submitted to the Albany office back in March. Canal Corp staff have asked the contractor Keller and Sons to provide a more specific site-specific safety plan that was submitted last week. Canal Corp staff will also question the need for U.S. Fish and Wild Game Service concurrence of bat-related tree removal approval, despite the DEC already giving us approval. Labella provided technical information that our project did not trigger the need to engage the Fish and Wild Game Services, and we are hoping Labella will respond favorably to that specific issue and then issue the work permit. Hopefully very soon. As Mr. Bruno said, we'd like to start by May 1st. Right now, we're at April 20th and we do not yet have a work permit. If the permit is not issued in April, this will be escalated to an urgent issue because we do have a timing issue to have the construction done before Block 8 bridge replacement construction starts, which is anticipated to be in August. Finally, actually, I just repeated that we thought the bridge replacement would be July 1st starting, but now it's going to be starting probably August 1st. But again, we have to have the work permit for Canal Corp to start our project. And if we don't get it soon, we're gonna have to escalate the issue. Moving on to new natural gas supply, as previously reported, National Grid can accommodate new natural gas connection after 2027 reinforcement of existing nearby gas main. On March 4th, there was a meeting with the National Grid gas engineering team to advance conceptual engineering with the goal of connecting to the two existing site buildings, canal side existing site buildings, have additional capacity for further site development. We've asked for an update from National Grid twice since that meeting. Unfortunately, they're not yet done response and we're waiting for their reply. Moving on to the fifth issue of NEPA. Labella drafted the National Environmental Policy Act review form for HUD funding requirement, and it has been approved by the village mayor, so now NEPA is complete. Finally, on the canal side assessment, as previously reported, the two park lots are assessed at $10.3 million to a 2025 appraisal value of the site as is at $5 million. March 5th, the executive committee approved us advancing a complaint to both the village and town of Fort Edward. March 10th, the complaint form was submitted. On March 30th, I toured the assessor took the assessor to the canal side property for a full tour. And the assessor suggested my next step was to attend the grievance day meeting on May 26th. I have asked for her position on the complaint and there has been no reply. So I think we'll not know the outcome until May 26th. That's it on canal side development, unless there are questions.
Usually in those assessment things, May 1st is their date that they send out the letters after there's been an on-site meeting.
Yeah,
So I think you'd get something right.
I'll ask
after May
her
1st.
again after May 1st, see how she responds.
Usually it's what you had was usually an informal and then you'll get a written letter as to what they decided. But usually May 1st is the cutoff, so I think pretty soon.
All right, well, re-engage after May 1st, we'll see what happens. Thank you. As far as canal side maintenance update, Mr. Bruno and I would like to recommend the rental of a brush hog late spring and then again late summer. We have 3 verbal quotes that have been gathered by Everett for board consideration. They are the following. These were gathered on April 10th. The highest bid came from Pastor Rentals on Hudson Falls for $5,290 for the monthly rental. The next one was Bobcat of Schenectady out of Burnt Hills, actually. They were $4,950. And the lowest bid was from Sunbelt Rentals out of Clifton Park for $3,800, significantly less. So we'd like to have approval to go ahead and get the skid steer with brush hog on site in the next month or so, and then again in August.
Is that a week at a time? I guess I didn't look that
It's
close.
4 weeks. We'll bring it on site and then Everett will use it.
For 4 weeks each
4
time.
weeks, yeah, each time.
Each time, okay.
All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the skid steer with brush hog rental from Sunbelt Clifton Park at $3,800. Brian, second. Dan? Any discussion?
What's the time frame we're looking to rent it from? And you said
Uh,
4 weeks, but I didn't know if we had a date in mind.
We're a little bit, we're watching weather conditions. It's been a little interesting this spring. But as soon as the grass starts taking off, now that it's getting warm and we're getting good rain, it should start coming. So
Gotcha.
we only have to give them a week's notice.
We'll judge it by
Gotcha.
the weather and the vegetation growth. That's what the big thing.
I'm good.
It can't be like the burn ban.
I have a question on renting the brush hog for a full month. Are we only needing to brush hog once for the month? Is that like a 15-hour job?
No, and the site is about 80 acres, and we have at least 20 that need to be brush hog, and it's also various terrain. Never will do this on a part-time basis, either after work or on weekends. So and we've looked at bringing the cost of bringing a company in to do this. It's probably about 4 times more expensive to hire a company to come in and do it 2 days with multiple machines. So this is the more economical way of us renting it and then paying.
We did have it last year, so yeah.
Yeah,
Some baseline.
and Mr. Bruno's pointing out, this is what we did last year, worked very, very well.
And there's areas he'll hit twice if it's growing fast, and areas he won't touch if it's not growing at all. So,
Yeah.
I didn't realize how big it was. So that's basically a 35, 40-hour job.
That's about the number of hours he'll put in.
Yeah. But this, this is in, as opposed to, we looked in. For
To
people who
buy
weren't here
it,
last week,
yeah,
we looked in, did some extensive research, if you will, on buying a piece of equipment. But in light of the fact that hopefully this property is gonna be sold, and with the cost of buying that piece of equipment pretty high, $40,000 plus that, we decided that we wouldn't buy it, and is more economical for us to do this, to rent a piece of equipment and have Everett Scully, the on-site manager for SMS Rail, do the work. And again, it's cheaper than hiring an outfit, which we actually did the year before that. So again, we have experience and cost to base our decisions.
and he takes a lot of pride in the work he does.
Yes,
He does really well.
and he does a good job.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please, Ally.
Brian Campbell,
Yes,
Pam Bruno,
Yes.
John Caplan,
Yes.
Trisha Rogers. Yes. Tom McCoy,
Yes.
Melissa Fitch.
Yes.
Juan Gonzalez.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to canal site tenant updates. Mr. Bruno mentioned the CHP and Kiewit vacated the site. The final inspection occurred with Mr. Bruno and I and Representative Kiewit on March 31st. We asked Kiewit to run a street sweeper for final cleaning. It was completed next week. Also, as a reminder, we have 2 reimbursements for CHPE. Board has already approved this, but we'd just like to reiterate it. The company overpaid 1 month rent of $22,400 and is owed the remaining balance of $5,800.29 for the soil storage escrow account. So the 2 payments were approved by the board, by the executive committee with full board on March 5th. But again, I think Mr. Gonzalez, we want reiteration, or do we just notify?
Do we need that board again?
No, yeah.
Okay, all right, so there, we've notified. Okay, thank you. And finally, in the airport industrial park, as approved at the last board meeting, Robert Sears Tree Experts is looking to purchase a 26-acre Ferguson Lane extension lots to grow his established business. Purchase is contingent upon New York State DEC approval of necessary wetland permits. The majority owner, Bill Hafner, has drafted the site concept plan and is engaging the town of Kingsbury and the DEC. Mr. Hafner is also interested in potential IDA incentives. On February 27th, I provided with draft incentive. I provided him with incentive application and explained that Kingsbury would be formally involved in the approval process. And I believe Mr. Hafner has reached out to Kingsbury, but I have not yet heard back from Mr. Hafner on Kingsbury's position on the incentives, and there'll be more to come on that. And finally, we have the Glens Falls Rotary Project. This is a 20-acre site in the Airport Industrial Park Phase 2, heavily impacted by wetlands for a potential tree farm and wildlife education center being sponsored by Rotary. The Rotary leaders attended the Kingsbury Town Board meeting on October 21st and received favorable feedback. Rotary is planning to engage DEC for informal feedback on their project. I provided the DEC contacts a couple weeks ago. I ran into one of the people, Kevin O'Brien, last week, and he said he is in the process of arranging a meeting with DEC. So it's still moving forward, but you know, fairly slow. And that's it on the report on both parks, unless there are any questions.
And those are the remaining parcels after that. Would be free and clear, airport industrial.
Right, Kara, 100%. All right, any final mulligans on Canal Side Airport Industrial Park before we move on to ongoing business? All right, ongoing business, Wood Creek Holdings update. Kara, give us a back summary of that one, please.
So we closed on that project, so they are off and running. But the one item that we need to do is when we looked at their project, because of the time that had passed since the time of application to time of they thought they were gonna close, that was like at our January meeting. They left the date as completing their project by the end of May, and they just closed, so that's obviously not gonna happen. So, we put a completion date, the same as the banks, which is May 1st, 2027. So we need a resolution to authorize that.
And Wood Creek Holdings for the reminder of which project we're
It's
doing.
HQ powder coating in Whitehall.
Dan. Oh, okay.
We're trying to move it.
You want to let me? All right, sounds good. I will entertain a motion to approve the extension of the completion date to 1 May 2027 and sales tax authorization. Dan, second. Brian, any discussion? Roll call, please, Ally.
Brian Campbell,
Yes.
Ian Bruno,
Yes.
John Tackland,
Yes.
Bishop Rogers, yes, Connor McCoy,
Yes.
Melissa Fitch.
Yes.
Juan Gonzalez.
Yes,
Motion passes.
great. Moving on to exit 19 lodging. A little background and history first.
So this is the Town Suites project. And they are, I believe they've started,
They've done
some site
work.
work. They have their sales tax exemption in place, but they are closing with the lender before the end of this month. So I don't have a date yet, but we'll be closing this month.
What was the ID fee for that one?
$150 combined. $1,000.
And
It's a $20 million project.
yeah,
Most of the finish line on that one.
Yep.
Great. Anybody have any questions on that one for Kara? All right, Chuck, March LinkedIn updates, please.
Just as a quick FYI, we've asked our social media intern to come up with a monthly report. This is the first edition. At the top, she highlighted number of total followers, we're at 283. I think more importantly, she pointed out that 75% of our audience is decision-making leadership positions, which is right here. There's some interesting data here of top performing posts. Mr. Tall had a very favorable response to posting we did about him joining the board, so thank you. We also, on the back side of this, are highlighting the actions underway. I won't go into these, but I will say that every month we have regular meetings, social media intern. Ally's gonna talk shortly about a new hire. So we'll be transitioning from Nicole to Lily, not to take the thunder away from Ally. And as Lily comes on board, this will be her monthly report update for us. Any questions or comments?
Only one I had was down the conclusion side on the bottom of page 1, that there was talked about fewer opposed, so fewer engagement, but if we have like 30 active projects, we can't continue to go backwards and highlight projects that have been active for a while.
Yeah, we just recently did the Holiday Inn Express project, so we're going back and bringing those forward. And we also believe the CHP, when the switch is flipped on that, that'll be good fanfare for us to go after. So, yeah, we will go after some of our older projects.
All right, if everybody can keep sharing that and asking them, is there a button like on Facebook where you can ask them to join or follow the WWIDA? I don't usually.
There can be on it. I've clicked on some of them following, but I don't know that I've seen that.
Yeah,
on
what
others.
we've asked too is that we can individually reach out. Our last major addition of followers was reaching out to my group, saying, will you follow? And we got a pretty good response on that, but we need to keep doing that. But each one of us can actually do that. If you're a LinkedIn However, you can push to your group to ask the group to follow.
Can you send us instructions on how to do it? There's a few of us that are dinosaurs.
Well, a lot of times there is a thing that says follow and you press the button and then it says you're following.
Right.
And I don't know if that's on the ours or not. I haven't,
But there's a way you can also ask people to follow.
yeah.
People that you're connected.
But I mean, if the button's just there, I was like, I just press it. So that would be nice too. Our intern probably will know way more about that than we will.
I don't use it, so. All right, great.
It's only for professionals, Juan.
No. Can't stay in the shadows and retire 5 years. I'm using LinkedIn. All right, new business, 17 under foot sales tax exemption extension resolution. Ally, give us a background on that.
Yes, so Bill Smith, the owner of Everything Underfoot, is asking for a third sales tax exemption extension. The problem being his elevator keeps getting delayed for delivery and installation, and they are saying they're coming in June to do that. Which is obviously holding up his CO as well, so he's just as frustrated. So he's asking for a third extension to expire August 1st of this year.
September 1st.
September 1st, sorry.
So far, all he's got's the shaft, is what you're
He's
saying.
got, yeah,
Sorry. I will vote for the.
This is quite valid. We actually have a 2-story building where the elevator is won't be able to get open for 4 months because of the elevator, so. This one's sad, but it is. And nothing, no touching of the numbers or anything. This is.
No, it's the time frame.
All right, so let me read the resolution. With that, I will entertain a motion to accept the resolution, taking action, extending the project completion date and authorization for sales tax exemption to Everything Underfoot LLC as agent of the agency for the purpose of constructing and equipping the project facility. Brian, second. Dan, discussion. All right, roll call, please, Ally.
Brian Campbell,
Yes.
Dan Bruno.
Yes.
John Caplan.
Yes.
Trisha Rogers. Yes. Connor McCoy.
Yes.
Melissa Fitch.
Yes.
Juan Gonzalez.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. Moving on to 326 Sherman Avenue LLC, Affron Sports Dome sales tax recapture and ST65 submittal. Ally, start us with the background.
Yes, so Akron Dome Sports submitted their ST 340, which is their sales tax and use exemption report for the year 2025, and I found out that they have over their allotted amount for the past 2 years, and so we need to recapture 1686 from them to pay back taxation and finance for the exception that they used that they should have. And so with that, I have invoiced Active Domes. They will, upon payment, we will send that check to taxation and finance along with the ST65 that you see in your packet, explaining that they had gone over and the repayment of that. And with the approval to do that, to send that to taxation.
Yeah.
Good question. How are they doing that sports dome? But the reason I asked, whoever was on the board at that time, if you recall, they, like so many, came in and told us great things are gonna happen now, but I hear from other people that hasn't necessarily been the case. In other words, they were gonna track all kinds of, I don't know, softball tournaments, stuff like that. Do we know how they're? Yeah, I'd be happy to help with that. So they have done some of their commitments. They've done a lot of work inside the dome. They've done some parking, but they haven't done all the parking they talked about, nor have they done the additional field. So with the information that we've got garnished for year end, we're doing some follow-up questions with them, including their investment, because they have an obligation to the investment this year. If they need an extension, fine, but we want to make sure they're following through with the investment. And as far as their FTEs, they're a little bit behind. Their ramping up has gone slower than expected. I do know they have offered 4 additional tournaments they talked about. So on the program side, they've offered. But as far as the investment, we're doing some follow-up right now. Thank you.
I attended one tournament, the fall that was huge.
Yeah.
But that's the only one I know about, just because I was invited on that.
I know they recently hosted the boat show. Very well attended.
That was kind of an ongoing thing.
Yeah, that wasn't.
Yeah, that was a continuation.
But again, if you recall. Mr. Atherton came in and told us that, you know, this is gonna be great. He has all this other stuff going on, therefore he's gonna crack more term and figure that I haven't seen.
That's been the biggest complaint from the business community, particularly down at Lake George. And
Regarding-
Queensbury, yeah, that the tournaments are local tournaments, so they used to have teams and players and families all in the hotels, and they said they're not having them anymore, so.
They had him as, they
Yeah.
had before this guy took over.
Yeah.
And I live up there. I drive by it multiple times a day, and it's nowhere near the same level of use that it was prior.
Mark,
I didn't get it, yeah.
Back up a little bit on it. You said less use than before? Mark? Oh. You lost Mark.
Yeah, I think that was the exam.
Yeah.
You're coming in, going.
Yeah, so we're doing follow-up. Kara and Alan and I have spoken about it. Kara's drafting the thing. All of that.
Great. With that, let me bring this before entertaining a motion to approve the ST 65 for 326 Sherman Avenue LLC. Brian, second. Tricia, any discussion?
If we determine that they're not doing their part and following through, what recourse do we have?
Additional recapture.
The alternate hand, there's a clawback. No, and just a reminder, it was not a standard incentive program. Because they were buying the property, so we gave a special island to them. So that just an exclamation mark on the situation where they were the and so we're expecting them to follow through. Good point.
They
they're on the radar screen.
Well, we didn't want the region to lose it was the main thing.
Well, we did not want it to close.
Right, we don't want,
There was.
and this looked like our best alternative to keep it
There
going.
were some thoughts about some real estate property company looking to buy the property converted, so there was a little bit of a protection element here. But still, there was the obligation for the investment, additional activity, so again, more to come.
Great. Roll call, please, Alex.
Brian Campbell,
Yes.
Dan Bruno,
Yes.
John Caplan.
Yes.
Trisha Rogers.
Yes.
Andrew Foley,
Yes.
Melissa Fitch. Yes. Ron Gonzalez.
Yes,
Motion passes.
great.
And for the record, I need to this payment of this recapture, on completion of this recapture, no further action will be taken against the company and they are currently in good standing.
Great. All right, moving on, staff report, CEO.
Okay, I have a long list. I know it's running late. I'm just gonna hit some issues real quick. Talking about dates from March 17th to today. On March 18th, I attended the Greenwich Chamber Mixer. On March 25th, I had a coffee meeting with the Rev Rail, new chief marketing officer who's getting acclimated to the area. And on the same day, I met with Tim McNulty, Jim Siplon, Paulson Development regarding a potential new medical facility on Corinth Road. Much more to come on that. They're still in the process of shaping the project. Then on March 27th, I attended the Lake Champlain, Lake George Regional Planning Board Brownfield Coalition monthly meeting with Weston and Sampson. That project was starting to get some legs now as far as inventory analysis across 5 different counties. Then on April 2nd, Jim sponsors what's called Jim Siplon, the Regional Strategic Alliance, meeting with Warren County EDC and Warren County Administrator, Mr. Teflon was there. And Glens Falls Economic Development Director, Jeff Flagg was there. And we sit around the table for an hour and we just talk about various economic development activities going on in the region. And then on April 10th, I met with Capital Bank representatives Tracy Wardwell, Skylar Tilley, Max Shurgonovich. Max is new to the area, so Tracy asked him to meet, just talk about what the IDA does that we serve. And then on April 16th, I met with Gross Property. We were with Joe Gross and their property manager. His name skips me right now, but they have 40 acres off of Silver Circle that was just cleared. Silver Circle is off of Big Bay Road, and they are looking to put some manufacturing space in there, and they're looking for potential tenants right now. They'll offer building anywhere from 40 to 100,000 square feet, depending on the needs of prospective tenants. So right now, we're in tree clearing anticipation for the building as soon as they land a potential tenant. They are not interested in selling the land, they just are interested in being a landlord. And then also on the same day, on April 16th, the ARCC had a mixer Glens Falls Country Club, which is very well attended. That's it for my activities, unless there are any questions. As far as the engagements year to date, there have been 18. 5 have been with manufacturing distribution, 2 with tourism and recreation, 1 with mixed use, 7 in housing, 1 in medical, and 2 in other. Of those 18 projects, I'm expecting 3 to be applicants in 2026, 3 to be applicants in 2027, no applicants in 2028. I have 8 that are unknown whether or not they'll be applicants, and 4 that I don't expect to be applicants. As far as the pipeline list, we currently have 20 projects as of Friday. We have 6 mixed use projects. We have 7 housing projects. We have 2 hotel and resort projects and 5 manufacturing distribution projects. Of those 20 projects, 4 are advancing their application. One we just heard today, that was 196 Ridge. And then we have 5 that will possibly be submitting an application. We have 11 that are still exploring. We have had at least over 10 that have decided not to move forward with the application for one reason or another over the past year. Finally, in the board package, there was a support letter that we wrote to Empire State Development on behalf of Lake Luzerne Water District Rehabilitation Project. And now I think the project is just waiting to hear the response of whether or not they get the grant funding. That's it from me, unless there are any questions.
All right, no questions, moving on to the administrator.
Yep, just a few things. So I wanted to update you on the county taxes. We have now been paid for all of them. There are no further pending payments on those. And also for the Paris reporting, I just received the ST 340, the sales tax use and exemption report from Weekender Hotels. So that means that I'm only missing one, everything underfoot. He says that I guess a lot of his purchases go through Lowe's, and Lowe's has combined his projects together, and they are in the process of separating everything out. So he has accurate numbers to provide in the ST 340 that I need to send the ST 65 to taxation and finance, and also to complete Paris. So until I receive those numbers, those are on hold. And also, Chuck stole my thunder, but I wanted to, no, I'm just kidding. I wanted to let you guys know that Nicole's last day will be May 8th with us. We have since met with Lily Trowbridge. We interviewed her. She had experience. She's currently a student at SUNY Adirondack. She's a local resident of Queensbury, and she will officially start employment with the IDA on Monday. So her and Nicole will have a little bit of overlap to cross-train, and Nicole can mentor her for a little bit, answer any questions that Lily might have. And if Lily's schedule allows, she will attend our board meetings and update the social media reports herself. So you guys will be seeing. That's all I have.
If everything on the foot doesn't get you everything by 30 April, invite them to the executive meeting. All right, any public comments? Any comments? Hearing none, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. Dan, second. John, all in favor?
Aye.
You're adjourned. Thank you very much.